what are you doing differently to help others reach to the place that you were or develop themselves into leadership positions?
Creating spaces where people can truly be themselves. And what I'm noticing is when you do that, you actually inspire them to do more and be better. And that is actually what I think is unique about the fabric of Canada is we aim to be a multicultural country. We have our own CAO and our whole general manager team and mayor and council that also truly believe in diversity and inclusion and equity. Like they really, really do embody and believe in it, which makes it really easy for myself and our group to do it. And before it was like, I already know you. She goes, I came into your office with my son to apply for a position. And she goes, everybody in the office was laughing and happy to be there. Every interaction, people coming in. And it just made me feel so great. And she said, at the front desk, they're serving us like they really cared and start being who you are. Because I will tell you, if you can be your authentic self and who you are, that long-term satisfaction is going to be there versus that short-term of I've got this job. You're never, you need to be your authentic self. They need to see who you truly are coming to the table because then that person will be who you're allowed to bring into the workplace and be.
So I started learning that and I've constantly made an effort to include inclusive terminologies while I'm communicating. That if you have a disability and if you don't say that, people will assume you don't have one. Yeah. And there is no shame in saying that you have a disability and then putting yourself out there and say, okay, I am not comfortable with this. And maybe next time let's use that is something that's relevant to me, which I can understand in a way. Hello everybody. How are you? I am Monisha and I'm back again with one another episode of Newcomers to Trailblazers. Here we are with the introduction, Anita Bhandari. She has spoken about a lot of things. Now I'm going to touch upon her work experience. Like I said, I remember reaching out to her the first time, not that we connected after that, we connected in person. But when I reached out to her on LinkedIn the first time, I remember texting her, hey, this is Monisha and I'm so happy to see a person of color leading people and culture, which is a human resources function in a city service space, which is mind blowing. And I was a new immigrant then. I'm still a new immigrant, but I was a very, very new immigrant then. And that was mind blowing for me. The first thing I did when I moved was research about some organizations or government organizations, private organizations. I started looking into their leadership profiles to see how many people are in that leadership position who are immigrants. When I say immigrants, I also mean Caucasians because they are also immigrants. But what kind of immigrants are they? Like, what kind of diverse immigrants do they have? That is the kind of thing I was looking at. And turns out not many organizations do, unfortunately. And even when I researched, I did not even find a lot of indigenous people in those leadership profiles that I looked into in private organizations or public organizations, which is very challenging. I realized that is actually when I started researching about what would a person of color be experiencing in a space where it is Caucasian dominated. If even though this is an indigenous land, unfortunate to say, leadership is Caucasian dominated, and I wanted to learn more about it. And I started talking to people, women-led organizations, and I started talking to a lot of non-profit organizations that how they are experiencing and how they are bringing in. Now I have to talk about her being the CHRO. So you are in one of those positions, right? You are embodying that spirit. You are an inspiration for me. You are that person. When I see, I want to become her, like that is something that I really look up to when I looked into your profile, when we connected in person. So what are you doing differently, or what did you do differently to become this profile, or what are you doing differently to help others reach to the place that you were or develop themselves into leadership positions?
I just want to pause for a second, Manisha, because I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit. I actually really admire you and the message and how you're creating this platform for individuals to, share and educate others. So, yeah, you're an inspiration to me as well. So I'm very humbled the fact that you were saying that. For me, I guess I'm not sure if I'm going to answer your question correctly, but I'm going to just speak to what I can. I think, society has evolved quite a bit. Mm-hmm. And if you look at it back maybe 5 years to now, the landscape, the workforce, a lot has changed. It really has. I think for me, what I'm doing to really embrace this and support it is I'm starting to speak out a little bit more and have my voice and share my thoughts. Not that everybody has to accept them, but mm-hmm. I just really trying to be my authentic self on what I think is valuable and important. The other thing that I've been really trying to work towards is creating spaces where people can truly be themselves. Mm-hmm. And what I'm noticing is when you do that, you actually inspire them to do more and be better. And that is actually what I think is unique about the fabric of Canada is we aim to be a multicultural country. Mm-hmm. In order to be a multicultural country, you need to embrace that multiculturalism. Mm-hmm. And I think that's where a lot of organizations might have failed is we focused in on our end goal and we hired individuals with certain degrees or experience, but not looking at that end goal of what we're trying to achieve. And, what is that foundation to make it sustainable? But I think now what's happening is people are starting to push that boundary and ask the questions and force individuals to look outside of their, parameters of what they think is acceptable. So as far as the city, I know we are doing a lot of things. For example, we're doing an initiative called Moving Burnaby Forward. That's really to create inclusive culture, really about the community, the customers, and our employees. So really focus around that. The other thing is, for me is bringing in somebody like Vishad Diplal, who's my senior director or senior manager of equity, diversity, inclusion. And even when I went on the recruit for that position, I had a lot of people apply that had their masters or degrees in culture or EDI, but they didn't necessarily have what I was looking for on delivering a message. Somebody who really embodies and believes and can echo that message. And he was a huge piece. I adore Vishad to pieces.
And he's super cool.
He's super cool. Yeah, he's come in and part of the direction that I've provided him is, we need to celebrate individuals at our city and our community. And what he's tasked with is every month is bringing up various cultures or initiatives that not only we do a celebration, but it's an education piece so people can understand their colleagues, who they are, where they come from. Because what I find is once you understand, you start respecting the individuals for who they are. And I believe what that also does is it starts embodying in you. So when you're delivering that service or interacting, you understand who that person is and where they come from. So for me, I think it's just really paving the path, getting the right people in place and continuing to echo that message out there. And I can't speak for other organizations, but what I am seeing is a shift in society where we all realize it's important. And in order to survive, I think organizations are going to have to start really reflecting their community that they're serving. It can't be what you think they want, but it's really internally reflecting what they need and what they want.
She said it so beautifully. And I would also like to add, so many organizations have this concept called employee resource groups, or they call it, some private organizations call it business resource groups. So which is basically a concept where it is employee led. Say example, if you have a community of LGBTQIA members, or if you have a community of, say, South Asians, or if you have a community of indigenous communities. So when you gather together and create that employee resource groups, there is so much energy when it is created, and so much energy is lost after it's created.
Yeah.
And I have experienced it firsthand with many organizations. And that kind of start something just to showcase it to the world that, hey, we are doing this, and then where is it? I don't know, somewhere happening. Many organizations lose the idea behind how inclusion has to be implemented than designed. And I remember reading about a LinkedIn article that says many leaders of EDI are resigning back to back.
Yep.
That is happening quite often now. And why is that happening? Irrespective of how many ideas you bring in, how many inclusive ambitions you have, what matters is how much is put into effort and how much is implemented. And even if you are implementing just top 2 out of all of your inclusion ideas, all of the strategies that you have when it comes to inclusion, diversity, and equity, what matters is how much of them has actually impacted your customers or your employees or the employee resource groups per se. And it is amazing to see there are quantifiable results that is done by Vishad and Steve and you. And so it is it makes me so happy.
Well, it's funny you're saying this. And sorry, Manisha, I hope I didn't cut you.
No, not at all.
So it's funny because one of the things I said to Vishad is it's not only about doing the events. And I know you're talking about people just communicate it, but that was part of our strategy is communicating it out there, because the more you communicate it, it also puts a little bit more onus on you to continue to do it. So that's actually part of our strategy is continue to communicate what we do, share it in hopes that others also, follow along and communicate that out. That's a full strategy behind it. The other part, I think, and you've said this, is I chat a lot with my staff of the flavor of the month, and you don't want that. A lot of organizations will take initiatives on and they'll put a lot of effort into them, but they don't think about the stickiness, the sustainability of making it going. And I think we're really lucky here because we not only have, myself supporting Vishad and saying, yes, this is important. We'll invest in it. We continue. We're creating a role and resources. We have our own CAO and our whole general manager team and mayor and council that also truly believe in diversity and inclusion and equity. Like they really, really do embody and believe in it, which makes it really easy for myself and our group to do it. And so I think when you look at initiatives like this, it truly needs to be woven into your culture as an organization. And you need to make sure it's not just superficial to, tick off a box. And that's what is going to make it continue to happen. If it is strictly just trying to meet an initiative, well, you're basically just putting your money into a hole and it's not going to make an impact. And other people on the other side will see right through you, like they will.
Yeah. When you mentioned impact, I also realized that there are so many organizations that have very diverse hiring. And when I say diverse hiring, I'm just going to be honest and say, I was a diversity hire in an organization. What does that even mean? What do you want me to do with that? And why do I have to be known as the diversity hire or the first female hire or the first South Asian hire? Why do I have to be that person? If that is what you are targeting, I am sorry to say that is the wrong strategy you have.
That's right.
And I would like to encourage organizations to say, look at the skill set people bring in, look at the value that they can create in their organization, look at what goes beyond that person as work, look at the whole person, not just the resume. The 2-page resume does not confide or does not talk about the person in reality. It goes much beyond. When you are trying to hire equitably, I would recommend that you look into the person per se, what kind of social media post they are talking about. Is that aligned with the organizational values, or is that aligned with the diversity that you're trying to bring in? A lot of things. We can do a lot of things.
Yeah, I have a thought on that, Manisha. My thoughts on that are, I think organizations need to start hiring differently.
Yeah.
And it's not the diversity hire. It's not hiring for a certain piece of education. I think right now we do have a true what they call as a war on talent. And it sounds so cliche, but right now everybody's competing for the same people, and it's hard to get them. And I think what we need to start looking at is the fit and feel of individuals. So what are you trying to achieve? What type of culture are you trying to create? What type of landscape, do you serve? And then start really trying to hire people to echo that. So rather than, hiring somebody of color because we have no people of color, that is definitely the wrong approach, because nobody's going to be successful in that. You're not going to be as an individual. We're setting you up to fail. And we're also setting that individual up to fail. Like it's just not the right space. So I think it's really looking at fit, feel, and, what are you trying to really achieve? And set realistic expectations. So I'll use Vishad, for example. When I brought him in, his background was marketing and communications, which you can see because he's absolutely amazing. Or events. That's what he was, events.
Yeah.
He's amazing at planning people. And I always tell him his superpower is bringing people together.
Yeah.
But, when I looked at him, it was some sort of feeling that he gave me in that interaction. And that feeling was what I really wanted in diversity at the city. And that was my gut saying, look, this person is coming in there. They're genuine. They really care about this topic. And if they truly, truly, care about it, I know that's the message they're going to send out there. And I'll tell you, everybody will say that, he's absolutely amazing in the messages he delivers. And that I think we as organizations need to start doing is looking at is what are we trying to achieve from this person, and then set them up to be successful.
Yeah.
Don't bring somebody in and say, this is what you're going to do. Now go do it. Nobody can do that.
Yeah.
Set them up, set that path for them, and really pave that pathway for them to be successful. Yeah.
This in real time is called leadership. And this is her style of leadership. And because we are speaking about leadership, and you have already explained how to set up your team member or another person up for success, and how do we create path for them. You also mentioned that your grief experiences, and while you grew as a leader, when you were serving in this position, it's changed and evolved over the years.
It has.
Yeah.
It really has.
So what has changed, especially with leadership? What has changed, and how has it made you a better leader today?
Yeah, I think what it's done is it's created a whole new thought around empathy and being myself. Is I used to always try to be somebody. I thought, okay, well, prim and proper, fit in, don't say this. But what I've learned is I can be myself. And I think that, being vulnerable or, being silly and, just letting loose is important. It's very, very important. And what I've done is I've also started encouraging that of myself and those around me. And I'll tell you, we laugh around the office. And in fact, I went to a Burnaby intercultural
planning table, VIPT.
Yeah. And I ran into this individual, and I won't say her name because I didn't ask her to say her name, but I ran into her and she came up and she says, oh, you don't even need to introduce yourselves to myself and Vishal because I already know you. And
you are talking about Anna Maria Bustamante, aren't you? I know her too, and she is right. I'm going to put her name out there. I am sure she's going to be thrilled. I'm going to tag her too. Okay, I'm not getting permission from her. She is amazing, and she is right.
Yeah, but the unique part was, she's like, I already know you. She goes, I came into your office with my son to apply for a position. And she goes, everybody in the office was laughing and happy to be there. Every interaction, people coming in. And it just made me feel so great. And she said, at the front desk, they were serving us like they really cared. And it was interesting. And she goes, and I recall seeing you at the front desk. And And I'm like, oh yeah, it wasn't me.
Yeah.
I think she didn't remember me, but that's okay. I took it as a compliment. And then she's like, and yeah, Vishal. And I think it's because she sees them all over social media. But the thing I got from that was I have a very engaged and happy department. And the reason why I have that is because I encourage them to be themselves. So they bring that every day in the office, and everybody loves coming in the office. And the funny part is, even outside of the office, we hang out or we have social events and nobody's forced to do it. They just want to see each other.
Yeah. When organizations say bring your whole self to work, they don't say that. They actually say, okay, so these are my values, this is my culture, this is my everything. So you follow these and then bring your own self. But
your employees create your culture.
Yeah, exactly. And I've experienced organizations that do say the same but do the opposite, where they say you can be yourself, but you have to wear this set of clothes, but you have to speak the way I speak, but you have to follow the values that I have, even though you don't believe in them, blah, 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 blah.
So you must have seen our pleather day, our leather day. So we had jean day Thursday. It's casual day. And, I saw one of the girls wearing these leather pants one time. I'm like, oh, we all have these. And our social planning thought, well, rather than casual day with jeans, let's all wear leather. So our whole, a bunch of the people in our department came in with leather pants and leather skirts. But I wore mine too. I wore leather pants. But it's just, you know what? These little things really do make an impact in your workplace. Just allowing people to be themselves, being vulnerable, and you shouldn't have to dress like others.
Yeah.
You shouldn't have to look like others. You shouldn't have to act like others. It's, to me, the only expectation I have is really just respect each other. That's all I want, is I want an all around respect for each other. It's simple.
Okay. We spoke about a lot of things. We spoke about leadership. We have spoken about her journey. We have spoken about a lot of things. Now we are going to speak about City of Burnaby. Yeah. So
I'll give one of these.
So City of Burnaby is a beautiful city. I live close to Burnaby. I don't live in Burnaby. I live close to Burnaby, and it is one of the most beautiful cities. And I know for a fact that 64% of the population that lives there are immigrants.
That's right. City of Burnaby, we're doing a lot of different things. So maybe I'll talk first internally is, as I mentioned, the EDI manager, cultural events every single month to celebrate, educate, and understand, which are led by various employees. So they speak from where they're coming from. In addition, we've created, an accessibility committee that's represented from across the city to make sure we break down barriers and make sure our facilities are accessible, and understanding all the prohibited grounds in those areas that might preclude people from coming onto our facilities and staying on our facilities, working on our facilities. And then the other part we've done is we've created an EDI committee, which again, most organizations have about 5.
Yeah.
We have about 20 people from every division or department within our city that is represented there and have equal voice within that. And then what we did recognize is sometimes those initiatives get lost. So we've created an oversight committee that represents external and internal initiatives, and we come together to make sure those initiatives come to life, and they're not just somebody's voice that's left and then dwindles. It really does come to life and their voice is heard. So those are things that we've done internally, and then on top of it is our leadership team. So my colleagues, the GMs, the DCAO, CAO, we sit at a table every week, and we talk about different initiatives and what we need to do as a city, and really strategically think about that direction we're going. So internally, I think we've laid a lot of great foundation, and more so than I could say most communities have done. So a real true commitment. We've also, we have our Indigenous relations director. We have also now brought in intergovernment relations manager or director as well. So again, a lot of different pieces recognizing it's important. And then as far as the community as well, as Mayor and Council are huge advocates of EDI and making sure that our community is properly supported, taken care of, and we remove any barriers that they might face. And you'll notice even through our cultural services, we do a lot more celebrations and displays. The different Indigenous work across the community. You'll also notice is in our museum, we'll have various displays that represent different cultures. So again, a lot of different initiatives we've been doing, and even the surveys. We've introduced an anti-racism policy, and we have a EDI policy. So just a lot of different initiatives to really stand behind our commitment of changing, and changing as an organization and creating that true inclusive culture.
Yeah, that's amazing. So we have spoken to viewers about such good initiatives about City of Burnaby, how inclusion is the driving force.
That's right.
Yeah, and if I have to apply for City of Burnaby, me, not you, me. If I have to apply for City of Burnaby, what has to stand out?
What has to stand out? Okay, I'm going to tell you this. I've been thinking about this question because I get asked this quite a bit. Because City of Burnaby is a very desirable place to work. Mm-hmm. I've worked at 2 other municipalities, which are wonderful. They've been great experiences, wonderful organizations. But there is something really special about the City of Burnaby. Mm-hmm. So I will say that. Mm-hmm. I think for me, one of the things I've been thinking about is now there's a lot of technology out there and everybody's coming with the same foundation. You've got your degree, you've got minimum experience or some experience, and then you've got AI out there to help make your resume absolutely perfect and your cover letter absolutely perfect. So I'm going to let the cat out of the bag, what I think would set you apart. I think what you need to do is put something in there that reflects your uniqueness, which people haven't been doing, right? What is it about you that would be so special for the city? Not what is the city looking for in you. So have a different mindset. And then the other thing I've been thinking about is, workplaces are relationships and they go 2 ways. And I'm sure you've heard that a lot of times, but I think you as individuals really, really need to go in there in a viewpoint as in, I'm going into a relationship. So that person's got to respect and want me as much as I respect and I want them. And it's really, really important to go in there. And then the third piece is I think you have to be your authentic self. So stop going into those interviews and trying to be what they want you to be and start being who you are. Because I will tell you, if you can be your authentic self and who you are, that long-term satisfaction is going to be there versus that short-term of I've got this job. You're never, you need to be your authentic self. They need to see who you truly are coming to the table, because then that person will be who you're allowed to bring into the workplace and be. So those are pieces that I think are really important for individuals to consider when you're applying. And then as far as maybe removing some of those barriers is if there is a barrier for you is call and say, look, I can't submit my resume because it's too long or it doesn't allow me to do this. Or, if you have a hearing impairment or a visual impairment, let us know, because I know we are starting to do a lot of things. Like we have various language ability now. So if you don't speak English fluently, you have the ability to have translation on there. There's also the scripting. So now you can see it if you can't hear it, so things like that. I'm going to encourage people to use those resources. And then if there is something that we're not providing you, contact us, because I am always open to seeing what that barrier is. And then the other part is follow up. A lot of people get nervous to call. Call and ask, what is the status? And if you're not successful, call and ask, what can I do to make myself more successful for next time? So I think those are things that we need to start having our voice, asking the questions, being comfortable in our own skin. And that's what I think, Manisha, will set you apart. And that's our secret.
Yeah, that's our secret, not to the world. Yeah, I am applying today. I already have a resume in my mind, which just talks about me. I mean me. But this is amazing. So one thing I realized after moving to Canada was there is a resume standard template.
But
And-
why?
Well, thank you for saying that.
Why?
Why? And then, no, you have to mention this here, Manisha. This has to be in bold, Manisha. You have to mention pointers here, Manisha. It was so disheartening for me when I moved. And then I think many immigrants feel the same way. I have spoken to many new immigrants and they have felt the same way. And you mentioned about removing barriers. There are a lot of visible disabilities and invisible disabilities. You have to talk about if you have an invisible disability, say if you're facing Asperger's syndrome or dyslexia or color blindness for that matter, all those are still disabilities.
The issue though, Manisha, and I'll say twofold, is I think there is still a stigma around a lot of things, and we as employers need to create that space so people feel comfortable being able to share so they can, we can help them remove those barriers. So I think there's still some evolution and work around that. But I'll tell you is I think, mental health, disabilities, any of those barriers are very real, and we need to be human as individuals and be respectful and supportive and remove those. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, not at all. Yes, it is.
Sometimes it's hard for people to speak up, and I encourage you. For me, is if anybody were to call me, I would listen. I would listen and see what it is I can do to help. Yeah.
Thank you for highlighting that, and it is it has been wonderful. Like really having this conversation. Now you understand the value of the conversation that we had. You're going to post about it after you listen to this. You're going to reshare. But before we conclude, I know we have spoken about a lot of things, a very long episode. So we have spoken about a lot. We have spoken about her leadership. We have spoken about EDI initiatives. We have spoken about her life. We have spoken about her work. We have spoken about her kids. We have spoken about her parents. We have spoken about a lot of things. Now, it is time for her to question me. So, fancy me.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you. I really, truly, genuinely want to thank you, Manisha, because I think you create these spaces and, you create these trailblazing moments. And I just really, really thankful for the work that you're doing. And, I really hope the best for you. And I hope these podcasts and these messages really flourish and more people take advantage of them because, we learn from each other. So thank you. First of all, I do want to say thank you.
Thank you. It means a lot.
So I'm going to put you on the hot seat because I would like to learn from you is, you've had a lot of individuals you've had the chance to interview and learn from. So this is two parts. My first part is, what is kind of the key messages that you've been receiving that you would like to share with myself and I guess the viewers? Mm-hmm. And then the second part is, you've had the chance to probably interview some absolutely amazing people from different walks of life in different areas. What have you taken away from them and implemented in your life, or will you implement in your life going forward?
Okay, so two parts of questions. What was the common or the most given advice, and what did I learn, and how am I implementing it? All right. I think the most advice that is given by most of my guests is for immigrants to be confident. I truly believe confidence is not something that is very natural for people. Mm-hmm. So many are scared. And time and again, many of my guests have said, you have to be courageous. And moving from one country, leaving everything behind and coming here is you have achieved half courage there. You have already done it. You have done half the work is done. And after that is the remaining work. And it takes a lot of courage to do so. And when you have that courage, let me be clear, I am not saying that it is absence of fear and it is not possible. I am scared every day. I am scared every day. I'm scared to do this podcast with her. Not that she is threatening, just that me. I am the scared person. And every time I record a podcast, I'm scared. Every time I go outside, put myself out there, I'm scared. I am scared to drive. I am scared to not say the wrong thing. I'm thinking about the sentences twice in my head before I say it out loud in a public setting, because I don't want to be culturally inappropriate. So those are the things that has been a constant reminder from my guests to say, be courageous, but be respectful. Yeah. That is something that has, that is a most common message that has been given by my guest. And I have been following that. And the second part of the question, what have I learned and how am I implementing them? I have learned that it is important to keep an open mind. So when I say open mind, it sounds very simple, but when I say an open mind, it is as simple as using gender neutral terminologies. As simple as that. You don't say, hey, the CEO, what is he doing? No, dude, no. Nah, please don't say that. And every time I have made an effort these days, you don't know what their sexual identity is, you don't know what their gender identity is, you don't know how different they are, how disabled, what kind of disability, or if they are differently abled in some other way. It is important to ask and be curious, but be respectful. That is something that I learned. And every time I have conversation about a third person, when the third person is not involved, and if I don't know their gender, I say they. I use a common term they. What if they say? How do you want to do it? Until they change and say and give me a pronoun, I would not assume a pronoun. That is something that I learned like 3 months into the system. I started learning that, and I've constantly made an effort to include inclusive terminologies while I'm communicating. And second thing, like when we had this conversation about removing barriers, so many people have invisible disabilities. I mentioned that, and I'm not very good with colors. I'm slightly colorblind, not slightly, a lot of portion colorblind. And many people, when they say, hey, Monisha, check out that brown window. And then, hey, Monisha, that light green is so beautiful. And then I'm like, I don't know what that means, because I don't see those colors. And I find it extremely difficult. I am mixing up colors all the time. So I say, can you please refer to me to the shape? Yeah. Can you please refer to me to the person? Yeah. Please do not refer to the color. And if you don't say that, if you have a disability, and if you don't say that, people will assume you don't have one. Yeah. And there is no shame in saying that you have a disability and then putting yourself out there and say, okay, I am not comfortable with this. Mm-hmm. And maybe next time let's use that is something that's relevant to me, which I can understand in a way. So point the number, 4th tree, 5th tree, the 5th signal, that is okay. But something that is, you're assuming that there is no disability is actually very wrong. And like I said, there are a lot of mental health abilities and challenges that people have. And it is okay. It is okay. And you have to embrace the kind of person you are. If you are neurodivergent, take that opportunity and say that you are neurodivergent. If I have to give you an example, I have a nonprofit called Tech to Step, and one of my co-founders, she's the president, and she has high functioning ADHD. Yes, the world knows it. She knows it. Everybody knows it. I'm going to put it out there. She has high functioning ADHD, which leads to her being extremely unorganized. Now, I have 2 ways to handle this. One, to say, you're very unorganized. I don't know how to work with you. I don't know how to handle this person and all of that. Second way is, no problem. You're unorganized. Let me fill in the gap for you. Mm-hmm. I will be organized for you. Yeah. So every time when we work together and she comes up with an idea and they're like, let's put that into process, I will shift that conversation of bombardment into a small structure which gives her the ease of following a pattern. Yeah. So that is something that I learned, and I've been implementing it rigorously. And even when other people are unorganized, just don't label them unorganized, because there could be a million reasons why they are doing it that way. There could be a lot of challenges. And I have learned that it is okay that people are different. If they are not taking accountability, there is a reason for it. They could be just procrastinating for perfection.
That's true.
You never know, right? So identify the why behind their actions and take that behavior into implementation, and do that with conscious do that consciously. Like, do that consciously, take an effort, be the person who stands up for other people, be an upstander. That is something I have been implementing. Did I answer your question?
That's wonderful. Thank you.
And thank you so much for the question, Anita. It was, I don't think I said this out loud, but thank you so much for the question that you asked me. Yeah. I think we are close to the end. And thank you so much, Anita. Thank you for sharing your story. We have spoken about a lot of things. If you are a person who likes to listen, we are available on Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, YouTube Audio as well, and Spotify. And if you're a person who likes to watch it and learn from it, we are available on YouTube video as well. If you are a person who faces challenges with language, no problem at all. We have subtitles available for you. And if you need translation, please put it out on the comment, and we will find a way to translate it for you. So here we are. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Subscribe and follow us on Instagram, LinkedIn, TikTok. We are available everywhere. I am going to put my LinkedIn profile on the description. I'm going to put Anita's LinkedIn profile on the description, and Vishad's LinkedIn profile. You gotta follow him. You gotta follow him. He is super cool. You gotta follow him.
Super. Everybody follow him.
Yeah, you gotta follow him.
He's an influencer.
Yeah, he's an influencer. You gotta follow him. And I am going to put the link of City of Burnaby as well for different social media handles, so you can follow them. You have to look at the kind of initiatives they are doing. They are wonderful. And thank you so much once again for sharing all these information.
My pleasure. My pleasure.
Thank you. Bye.